Hi everybody, welcome to the Oldish TV. If you're concerned about the costs of growing older and paying for housing and healthcare costs, stick with us because that is the topic of our show today. My name is Karen Brown. I'm the publisher and editor of the Oldish, and it is my pleasure to welcome you here every Wednesday at 12 noon. Now, those of you who have watched our show on a regular basis will know that we publish articles at theoldish.com pretty much every day. It's about 6 days a week. And the other day, we published an article, which I will show you here. We published an article on June 3rd called More Seniors to Struggle with Healthcare Costs. Now, we know that there is what is referred to as a tsunami of aging seniors coming at us. And we also know that governments are not prepared for this. So if you're worried about how you will afford housing and medical care, these are some of the articles I'm going to show you today. Now stick around because it's not all bad news. It really is not all bad news. One of the things that I think stuck out to me in this article is that older adults will need to become more creative in planning for their own housing and care needs. Now, those of you who have been with us for quite some time will know that one of our major platforms at the Oldish is self-advocacy. We really encourage you to plan for yourself, to not let things just happen willy-nilly. We know that we can't count on a government that is unprepared. And I mean, pick a country. Pick a country. The governments are not prepared for all of these seniors that are coming at them and all of the needs that we will have when we're seniors, when we reach that age and our needs for housing change and our needs for medical care change. So I think that that was a really strong point in here. Many single seniors are seriously looking at co-housing opportunities. We've talked about co-housing on this show before, and other kinds of really creative solutions for care. Now, one of the things that we need to be aware of as we look at all the articles that I'm going to show you, and I have three that I'm going to show you, is that we already know that the birth rate has declined and will continue to decline for the foreseeable future. So there are fewer people being born who will come up behind us and take the jobs, which include healthcare. We also know that our children are having to travel further afield to find good jobs. Part of that is this whole business of seniors struggling with healthcare costs and feeling that they need to work longer, delay their retirement in order to be able to afford their senior years. So they're not quitting their jobs, which means younger people aren't able to find decent jobs or move up in their careers, so they're traveling further afield. You know, it all has a boomerang effect, and it's all pretty meaningful. Now, one of the articles that I want to show you is this one, and it was linked in that article. I will put the article below. For those of you who are watching us on Facebook, it'll be below. For those of you who are watching us archived on YouTube, it will also be below in the notes. The forgotten middle income seniors will have insufficient resources for housing and healthcare. Now, one of the things that this article highlights is the fact that people who have wealth will be able to afford whatever it is that they both need and want. People who are in the lower income cohort will have access to government services to provide what they need. Not necessarily what they want, but what they need. The middle income doesn't have quite enough money to pay for all of those services, but they earn too much money to qualify for the government subsidies and the healthcare plans that any government will have for the lower income people. So they're kind of stuck between the devil and the deep blue sea. Now, this article is rather long, so I'll leave it to you to read through it if you are interested, but I want to scroll down to the charts because they have some really interesting information in them. The size of the senior population by age and income. This demonstrates what I've just said to you. In 2014, the population of 75 and older was just above 20 million. And this is in the US. By 2029, it's going to be about 35 million. But you see the income cohorts. The low income is going to stay relatively stable. The middle income is almost going to double in size, and the high income will, oh gosh, it looks like it's about to triple or more in size. So this is where the problem lies for healthcare and for housing. So that's a very interesting one. Now we move on to the demographics. Females have always outlived males demographically. Of course, that's not true with every female and male, but overall, when you look at the data, the female population is always outpacing and outliving the male population. By 2029, though, it's going to be about 60% female and just a little over 40% male. So that is startling. Now, one of the things that this speaks to in terms of economics is that in a partnership, in a male-female partnership, if the female lives longer than the male's assets transfer to the female in the vast majority of cases. That increases her wealth. So when you're looking at statistics having to do with income and economics and wealth, you have to consider the fact that a female who was half of that wealth picture before is now 100% of that wealth picture. So that's a pretty interesting one. It does break it down by race and ethnicity, but this is another interesting piece that I want to look at. We know that in days gone by, you could get a pretty good job with a high school education. You know, you could leave grade 12 or grade 13, it was in Canada for many years, and you could go into a job that would eventually allow you to make a decent income. For many, many people, that could have meant joining a union. That probably meant a healthcare plan and a pension of some kind. Then we hit the era that the baby boomers, to some extent, found themselves in, maybe the middle-aged baby boomers found themselves in, where you needed to have a college or university education to get those same kinds of jobs and to be able to move up. I know that when I was going to university, which was, that would be in the 70s, in the middle 70s, I was going to school with a lot of teachers who were back in the summertime trying to upgrade to get a university degree in order to qualify for a higher income. It used to be that you could graduate high school and go to teacher's college, which was 1 year, and voila, you were a teacher. Then they changed the rules. You had to have at least a 3-year degree and then go to teacher's college, and then you would be in the kind of earnings category that you wanted to be in. But that has changed, and now you'll see that by 2029, the group with some college or college and above is quite large, quite substantial compared to the high school graduate. Now, these are going to be still the back end of the boomers who were able to graduate high school and get a job. Back end of the boomers here, front and middle part of the boomers here, I suppose. Now, this particular piece of the chart is interesting, although they have not made predictions for 2029. In 2014, people who are living at home and needing no assistance were 64.4%. Living at home and needing some assistance, 21.2%. Living outside the home, 14%. Now, the people living outside the home included people residing in nursing homes, retirement centers, retirement homes, assisted living facilities, retirement communities, senior citizens housing, and those in other types of housing that offer professional services for older adults or people with a disability. So not all of this number is going to be living in a place that has staff. I mean, these senior citizens housing and retirement communities may have some people who might, mow the lawn, or maybe you pay as you play to get services to come in to you. But it's quite a different picture from this group, which is 85.6% of people living in their own homes, or perhaps living in a home with their children. That's a really interesting statistic. Now, I don't think that there was, oh, yes, there was. I wanted to show you this chart. This is 100% of seniors, and this is 75 or older in 2029. So 2029, age 75 and older, the percent of the age group with 3 or more chronic conditions, 67%. 0 to 2 ADLs. Now ADL stands for aids to daily living. So that means that this percentage, 91.4, will need assistance performing the tasks of daily living, which could be bathing, preparing a meal, brushing their hair, that kind of thing. And the percentage of people with 3 or more ADLs, 8.6%. So those together are 100%. Look at that. Now, we have talked about this on this show before. You get to have some impact on this number. Of course, we can't predict all of the chronic diseases that may afflict us, but there is much evidence out there that says that if we eat a better diet, exercise regularly, and by that they mean 150 minutes of exercise per week, and engage socially, we improve our own health care. So we definitely want to take those steps to improve our health care to the extent that we can. Now, the good news in this chart is right here. 8% of this group, 75% and older, by 2029, will have some kind of cognitive impairment. My guess is that if you asked anybody to give you a percentage of the older adult population that was going to have some kind of cognitive impairment, they would be giving you a vastly higher number. 8% is good news, people. That is really good news. So make this better for yourself. Mobility limitations, 60.3. Now, they're not really defining in this chart what constitutes a mobility limitation. We all slow down as we age. We know that. Mobility limitations coupled with cognitive impairments, 5.9, and high needs, 20%. These are better numbers than I think most of us would have thought of if we were asked. So do everything that you can to improve your own health care, and you can be part of this absolute good news story. So now I want to show you one more chart in this particular article, and that is the projected financial resources of middle-income seniors by 2029. So not the high end and not the low income, financial resources of middle income. So these are the people who will earn too much to qualify for the government subsidies and rebates and such, but not enough to provide for all of their own needs. And you can see in this group here, the 30,000 to 70,000 age group, most of them will have a home. So you see the people with the home are that turquoisey blue area. People without housing equity are the people in the gold color. So that number declines as wealth increases. These are the wealthier people. Now, I would suggest to you that people who have an income of more than 90,000, it looks like some of them don't have homes. I would suggest to you that that is because they have elected to rent and put income that would otherwise have gone toward purchasing and maintaining a home into investments. There's a large percentage of people who feel that that's the way to go. They wouldn't own a home for love nor money. I like to own my own home. That's just me. But I know that there are people who feel that rental, and my brother is one of those. He feels that renting is preferable to owning. So anyway, if you look at this cohort grouping, you will see that these people have a house that they can sell, and they can put that equity into their retirement savings. You look on the lower end of the scale, and up to $30,000 of annual income, they don't have houses quite as frequently. They tend to be renters. Some of them have houses, most of them are renters. So that is that article, which I will leave for you to read the detail of. There's an article that I also want to show you here from the Canadian Medical Association. 6 in 10 people believe Canadians will have to delay retirement to afford health care. Now, this is Canadian data. It is from our Canadian Medical Association, but it absolutely has an equal effect in the US. And if you look down here, you'll see that 9 in 10 are worried about the growing number of seniors requiring more health care. 6 in 10 believe that Canadians will have to delay their retirement. Baby boomers believe that the healthcare system is essentially failing them. And that's not good news. That is really not good news. But here is the good news that I want to show you. Now, this is an article in the Financial Post, which is a Canadian publication. Again, it has application in the US. And this is actually a discussion that I have had with my financial investment guy as well. Here's what it costs to live in a retirement home, and the bottom line is less than you think. I think this is really good news. So, if you move out of your home, you are probably selling that home, and you are going to put that capital into your retirement income. You are also leaving behind costs like property tax and utilities and the food costs. They mention this because, of course, when you live in long-term care, the monthly fee covers your food costs. And it's estimating that you would save between $18,000 to $60,000 a year by not living in your own home. Now, the $18,000 may not sound particularly significant, but as you move closer and closer to the $60,000 a year of savings, that's pretty significant. When you're living in a retirement residence, your other costs go down related to the kind of lifestyle you have. Travel is one of them. Dining, new clothing, entertainment spending. I mean, how much stuff do you need? And how much do you entertain, really? You are probably going to be going to other people's houses and they're entertaining, and they're probably not expecting you to reciprocate any longer. So those kinds of costs, if you add them up in your monthly or annual budget, could decline to zero. The tax credits are helpful. Now, I don't know a lot about tax credits, but this is something that you have to discuss with your accountants and stay on top of, because I think a lot of people forget that these tax credits are available to them. So many seniors could get back 25 to 30% of their health-related expenses if they are sizable. Some of you who have been watching this program will know that I've mentioned a project that the Oldish is involved in with MS2 Productions called Real Life Renos. And we're talking about renovations to existing homes, to new built homes, and also renovations to the way we think about things when we are looking at issues surrounding aging. And one of the things that we have talked about a little bit, and we will be talking about in greater detail as we move forward with that project, is the need to advocate to the government for grant monies to enable older adults to make renovations to their home that are appropriate to allow the homes to adapt to the needs of the seniors. And really, these are universal design changes. We're not talking about things like, bathrooms that look like they're outfitted for people who have a number of challenges. We're talking about designing lovely spaces with comfort level toilets and showers with no thresholds that really anybody can use. Frankly, they're standard on some builders' agendas now. They are also standard in many of the places I stay in when I go to Europe. This is just the way they're building them. And we need to be more aware of this kind of building agenda so that we can make these changes to our homes. Now, I say grant monies because we also talked about rebates. And if you are in a lower income level and you can't afford to put out the money to refurbish or renovate your home to begin with, then a rebate is not of very much use to you. So let's go back to this article. In some cases, people have bought long-term care insurance. I have not. It's a relatively new kind of insurance. And by the time it came out, lots of older adults found the premiums too onerous. Now, if you buy it when you're younger, that's something that maybe the younger adults should be considering. So this article is saying that there's a lot that peels into the cost of growing older. Your health status, the annual expense of living at home, preference in terms of residence. Now, preference in terms of residence, when you look at the cost of long-term care, if you look at public long-term care, that expense can be $3,000 a month in Canada. If you're looking at something a little higher end, it could be $6,000 to $7,000 a month. And people are going, whoa, that's a lot of money. And it is a lot of money. However, you also have to take away the expenses that you will no longer have. Those property taxes, the food costs, the travel, the new clothes, the maintenance of a car was not mentioned in this article, but that's part and parcel of it. So it's a detailed examination of the finances you have now and what you may be faced with in the future. Now, there's a chart in here as well that I will leave you to look at that looks at the costs of owning your own home with 30 hours a week of care, and that it will add almost $67,000 a year to your annual costs. And then your retirement residence with moderate extra services. And you can see the high and low end. So if your lifestyle now costs you $65,000 a year, what they're basically saying is you could live in long-term care at $6,000 a month for perhaps the same kind of, oops, I'm not showing you the article. I'm so sorry. I apologize. There we go. There's the chart that I was talking away about and not showing to you. So here's this chart. So owning your own home, this is this almost $67,000 a year. And here's the retirement residence. At $72,000 a year, and it's looking at the likely savings from moving. On the low end, $18,000, on the high end, $60,000. So if you're paying $72,000 a year to live in a home or pay rent, or sorry, $72,000 a year to live in a retirement residence, the likely savings are $60,000, so it's actually costing you $23,000 a year more. Can you get that from your investment savings or from selling the family cottage or any number of other kinds of pension plans or retirement savings that you may have? I don't know. That is for you to figure out. But the point is here, people, it is not all dire bad news. There's some pretty good news in all of this. And I think that if you hear just the gross numbers without figuring out the other side of the equation for your own finances, you can be pretty scared about that. But if you can understand some of these costs, then I think what you can do is look at your own costs and plan. The details are always in the planning. You can plan for these kind of expenditures and figure out exactly where you are. Don't forget, if you're part of a couple, to plan as part of a couple and then plan for the what if one of you predeceases the other, because that changes. If you've been a stay-at-home wife and your husband predeceases you, his pension may not cover you to the same extent that it does now. That's just one example. So this requires a really good hard look at your finances and a really good hard look at what the options for retirement living are that are out there. And don't forget to peel in things like condo living or co-housing as well. So I will leave that with you. I will thank you for joining us today, and I hope this has provided you with some good news to counter the news that may seem more dire. and perhaps spur you on to advocate for yourself in a positive environment around all of these issues. If you enjoyed today's show, I invite you to come back next Wednesday at 12 noon. We'll be here. We will also continue to publish an article virtually every day on theoldish.com, and you can find us at whatever social media platform suits your fancy. Until next week, please do take care of one another, and do remember that it takes a village to age a senior.